questions to ask, and I have a few more from just attendees that were around who asked. They knew they couldn't be here, and they had me write some down.
Sweet.
All right, are we good? Fantastic. How do you prepare to perform a character? Is there any pseudo method acting, anything like that?
I think that there's a lot of people that try to make a science of it, and for some people that works. David Milch, who's the creator of Deadwood and writer on NYPD Blue, created Luck, John from Cincinnati, is someone that I'm really diving into right now, and I think he has a good grasp on it. And I've watched several interviews with him, and people are trying to do the same thing. They're trying to package his process and break it down so that it can be taught, and especially at some place like USC, which is known for its writing program. It's funny to watch him talk about it, because he says the process is, not that there is no process, but the process is this: get out of your own way. And instead of trying to think of yourself as creating this, you're just being a vessel. And I think that's what I'm trying to do as well. To me, especially acting is more, and you'll hear a lot of people say this, it's more about listening than it is about speaking. And I was just talking to Ashley Johnson about this, and she's on a show right now that her role is to be the expositional character. She rattles off a lot of technical scientific jargon, and it's really, really hard to not only recite that, but to have any kind of cognitive understanding of it, to be able to speak to it, which is the person that she is. She loves to act honestly. So she's like, how do you do this? And I was like, I don't know if it works for you, but I actually don't worry about learning my lines as much as I learn other people's lines. Or just really sit and listen to what they're saying. And Mickey Rourke was the one who kind of turned me onto that through an interview that he did. He said, the dialogue is the last thing that I worry about, because if I understand the character and the writing is right, then it should just flow. It should be just a conversation. So I think that's one thing that I really try to do is, it's not so much focusing on the black, and there's a project we're working on right now, and that's kind of our motto, is if it's not on the black, it's in the white, meaning on the page. And a lot of stuff lives in the space between. So my process is to, kind of going back to what we were just talking about, it's not about you, it's about something larger, and there's a place that you fit in. So to me, it's just getting out of my own way, trying not to overthink stuff.
Let's be honest, you voiced some of the most iconic characters in the game. Did you ever expect yourself to reach this peak of success?
Not at all.
Not at all?
Not at all. There's not one bit of me that says, yep, saw this coming. I quite often say that I find that I've tripped backwards into this, and I'm stumbling forward constantly, which keeps me on my toes, either on the front or the back. But I think that there was a point in my life where I stopped looking at it as a series of jobs, and I started looking at it as a career. And I wish that I'd done that earlier, because I think I would have treated it with more respect. And again, David Milch, one of the things he says, that the exigencies of the artist situation is always of the financial, meaning you'll do anything to somehow monetize and be able to continue to create your art. But there's a cool ownership that comes in when you stop worrying about doing it for the money and just doing it because this is what you need to do. And if you don't do it, then your head will explode. And that's kind of where I'm at, and you have to be willing to accept the cost of sometimes going, no, even if that means I don't know where my rent's gonna come from, but I know that that's not what I wanna do, and that's not building into my career, that's not part of my legacy. So, yeah, I would definitely say that it constantly surprises me, and I wanna keep being surprised by it. So I just think now I treat it with a little bit more respect than I did before.
What was a notable, challenging voice role you've had?
Voice role or just role, period? Because there's such a difference between those two. You know, when you walk into a studio and like say for Avengers or Borderlands, it's a really good point, to where you're completely depending upon the majority of the performance, not only coming from just the performance that you do from a voice standpoint, but also trusting the animators that they'll be able to execute exactly what your intention was and everything. And sometimes we even have to dial back, going, guys, we don't have the fidelity to really, I know what you're wanting to go for, but it just will look weird, you know, with the way that we do our characters. Because Telltale's a really good storyteller, but they, admittedly, they're like, we're not the best looking graphics you've ever seen, you
And
know?
the cell shading, of course.
Yeah, it's super stylistic and it works, but that to me is testament to how good of storytellers they really are. And I think that everything has its own unique challenge. It may not be necessarily, like Joker was super, super hard. Like I had immense amount of respect for Mark Hamill, but after doing that, most of my sessions couldn't be more than 2 hours, just because I would go in fully willing to do 4, and Amanda White, our director, would be like, "You're done, pal. I gotta bench you because there's nothing coming out right now," because it was just so vocally stressful. But dude, if you're gonna blow your voice out for something, that's a pretty cool gig to do it on. So the fact that Mark Hamill can just do that effortlessly just is amazing to me. So everything I think has its own challenges, and your task is to be willing and prepared to step up to each one of those challenges.
Tell me about what motivates you. How important is the fan support?
It's important, but not as a motivator. Because if I allow my motivation to come from people's support, what happens in the absence of that support? What if I do something that people don't dig, they don't agree with? Am I not motivated? No, you should be motivated by yourself to create something that's good. And for me, it's I'm going to use this term very specifically and not as a platitude that most people use it at, but as an artist, because I cover such a wide spectrum of things. You cannot have or look for your art to serve you. You just have to serve your art, whatever that is. But your art can become the appreciation that people get, and that can service you. But I think if you look to that to motivate you, you gotta check your head and your heart.
Of course. If you were to start your career over again, what would you do differently?
You know, nothing. There's a lot of things that I can look back and say those were missteps and those were mistakes, but I wouldn't change anything, because even the stupid stuff that I've done, for right or for wrong, has led me exactly where I'm at, and I like where I'm at. I have to be content with that. I want more. You always want more, but if I start going back and saying I would like to erase all my mistakes, then I'd be the stupidest person walking around. Because it's one thing we said the other day, you know, wins are not the teacher. It's the losing, it's the losses, and the trick is to understand the lesson in the loss. Somebody actually quoted me on Twitter and said it way better than I did. I was like, I need to remember that. So yeah.
Go through your archives.
Yeah, I know. I just look through it again.
Oh yeah. Where do you see yourself in 5 years?
I have no idea, man. Hopefully still working. I'll be 5 years older. Should be the same height. Hopefully the same build or bigger. Be cool.
Yeah.
But I really don't know, man. I think that there's a lot of stuff that's coming at me pretty fast and hard, and instead of thinking about 5 years, I'm trying to think about 5 minutes in front of me, and I just want to make sure that everything that I'm doing is building into something that 5 years from now I'll be proud of. Cool.
And then finally, my last question.
Yep.
Any interesting pseudonyms you've used in the past?
Trip Fontaine was one. That was a band that I was in, and you have union and non-union work, and a lot of times to somehow protect your
Keep it on
identity.
low key.
Yeah, you'll try to be low key or whatever. And so Trip Fontaine was one that I used a lot, which was a character from The Virgin Suicides, played by Josh Hartnett. He was the guy that banged Kirsten Dunst on the football field prom night. I'm like, who doesn't want to be that guy? That's kinda
Put that in the credits.
Yeah, so
My man.
do you see the discrepancy between the final answer that I gave for yours and the final answer that I gave for him? I'm also getting waved down. We need to wrap it up? Okay. We got, okay, so
We'll just do one more.
Pick one more. What you got?
You wake up tomorrow, but you're not Troy Baker. You're one of the voice characters you've done.
Oh shit.
Who would you be and why?
I know who I absolutely do not want to be, and that's Joel. Or Booker, because he's dead. So that sucks. Spoiler, sorry. Reese would be fun. Reese from Tales from the Borderlands would be a lot of fun, and that's someone that I really, really relate to. He's plucky. He's yeah, and he has great socks, so I'd probably go with him.
Fantastic. That's all the questions we have time for.
Awesome.
Thank you so much for your time, sir.
My pleasure, man. Thank you. Cheers.
Cool.